anxiety, true anxiety, which is different than the anxiety that is tied to worry or the anxiety that's tied to the
Yeah.
unknown,
Okay.
right? Like 25% of Americans suffer from anxiety. The people who truly have anxiety know. Everybody else doesn't really know what it feels like.
Okay.
Because real anxiety comes from when you don't even know what it is that you're upset about. Like that's the true anxiety, when something festers in your gut and you don't even know what's bothering you because it's almost on a sixth sense kind of a level.
Yeah.
And there's still a large number of people who have that, but it's
Mm.
not the person. Like when I get worried about payroll at the end of the month, that's
Yeah.
not anxiety,
Okay.
right? But when I'm sitting there and I'm like, something doesn't feel right and I can't sleep and it's nagging at me and my stomach feels bad and I've got all this nervous energy and I'm just off center,
Yeah.
there are a number of people who suffer that anxiety, a number of very high performing people who suffer from anxiety, because what's happening is cognitively, your brain is picking up on cues that your prefrontal cortex can't register.
Mm.
So it's almost like your monkey brain, your animalistic brain, is seeing a threat that your cognitive brain cannot identify yet. And
Mm.
that threat is being processed in the deeper parts of your brain, and it's manifesting physiologically in your body. Now, when you hear about what is actually causing anxiety, you start to see why it's a
Yeah.
superpower, because it's like a spidey sense.
Yep.
Spider-Man doesn't even have to see what's going to happen before he knows that something's about to happen.
Yep.
And
I got
as a result of that spidey sense, Ed, what happens is you naturally become more cognitively aware of the world around you.
Okay.
So your monkey brain turns on your frontal brain, your human brain, to a higher level. So
Mm.
now those are the people who are better at forecasting bad events, better at forecasting good events. They're easier at flipping between perception and perspective because their brains have been pressure tested,
Mhm.
inoculated over time with the stress of feeling anxiety.
Mm.
And for that reason, it causes the lay person, the average person with anxiety, struggles in life
Mm.
because they don't know how to turn this perceived weakness into a power.
It's
Where
really
what
good.
CIA does, CIA recruits us because we have anxiety
Really,
and then teaches us how to tap into it and use it for what its purpose is.
really,
And
that's a
that's what
recruiting.
makes them.
You're telling me
Yeah.
that that's a criteria that is looked for as somebody with anxiety.
That is a category, that is an inherent skill, an innate skill
Okay.
that when it's identified, it's dovetailed into very specific job categories.
Got you. Do you believe that, I didn't know I was going to ask you this today. Do you believe that you can cross a line with anxiety or worry? And I understand the distinction between the two now that I didn't before, where, because I am one of those people, as are a lot of my mega successful friends. However, I've wondered in my life, because I also believe in vibrational frequency and energy, and I'm also a Christian, but I do believe in that. And I've wondered if I've created or drawn to me things I've subconsciously worried about or had anxiety about in my life that I otherwise would not have had come into my world had I not repetitively thought about it. Do you believe in any of that? And if so, do you think that someone should guard against that if they're one of these worriers or anxiety people?
So in what I am not a person who tends to believe in much. I
Mhm.
tend to take
I've read
objective
that.
fact.
Yep.
I take objective fact and I try to synthesize it into knowledge that I can then use predictably.
Mhm.
And what I've seen in my clients, as well as what you're saying right now about yourself and your own peer group,
Mhm.
has been really consistent.
Mhm.
What I believe is happening is where people write books about vibrations and the law of attraction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe that's true.
Mhm.
Maybe. But
Mhm.
here's what I do know. I know that people who have a heightened sensitivity that causes them anxiety,
Mhm.
those are people who have greater informational awareness of what's happening in the world around them.
Yeah.
Because they have that greater informational awareness, they start preparing now for something
Yeah.
that may not happen for another 6 months. And then when the thing happens in 6 months, they know how to deal with it. You just said it yourself a few minutes ago, Ed. When really bad things have happened,
Mhm.
you've handled them really well.
Mhm.
For me, that's not a surprise. For
Mhm.
me, that's because if you tell me that you struggle with anxiety
Mhm.
and you tell me that you deal with bad situations well,
Mhm.
it's because subconsciously you've been preparing for that bad situation for a long time. So
Mhm.
then when it actually happened, you already had a process kind of in your brain for
Mhm.
how to deal with it.
Mhm.
Whereas The average person who does not have anxiety, who does not prepare for a negative event, who is not even aware that bad things are happening around them, their monkey brain is working against them.
Yeah.
So then when bad shit happens, they literally are deer in the headlights. I bet you don't have many deer in the headlights moments.
Yeah, I don't. By the way, this is such a great conversation, brother. But I don't. I've always wondered those two things. Like, I definitely am a fearful, worrying guy, and I also have anxiety, and I understand the difference. Yet, maybe a lot of you relate to this that are listening. Yet, when crunch times come,
You
I'm
get it done.
I'm pretty calm and I execute. And that's really a fascinating description of why I am both of those people, what you just said.
So if you think about it, right? If 25% of the American population has clinical anxiety, which
Yeah.
means some psychologist is giving them a drug to make them feel better.
Mhm.
You and I now know it's not really 25% of the population that has true anxiety. It's more like 12 to 15% that have true anxiety. And if you get your hands on those 12 to 15% and you put them in your business and you put them in your executive team and you put them in your national security infrastructure, those people are going to deal with emergencies better than anyone else.
Oh,
And guess what? The only thing guaranteed in life, man, is the unknown.
yeah.
So they might lose sleep. They might not eat well. They might gain weight. They might become reclusive. They might self-destruct by the age of 60. You don't know. But what you do know is that when the hits the fan, that person has got your back
Mm.
and they're going to be unflappable in that moment of terror where other people will shut down, quit, give up, or get rolled over.